The following program is brought to you by the Center for Educational Outreach at Baylor College of Medicine.
As far as all the presentations you're seeing, for the most part, they're going to be online. Like Michael's presentation on safety, to some degree, we're making the website, as we speak, okay? So, and it's something brand new that HOC's never had before. So what we're looking at is literally having you be able to go online to the K8 science site, and you'll click on HOC, and you will find Michael's safety presentation, so that if you're training other teachers, you can use that presentation. Or if you're going, well, what was that MDSD thingy? Then you can go on there and you can find all that. So hopefully, the majority of what you're going to see in this whole two weeks will be online for you. So, sometimes there's that frenzy or frantic thing of, I didn't get that handout. Everything won't have a handout. A lot of stuff will have a handout because we gave you a notebook for you to do that. But some things you may not get everything there, but it will be online in some form. And if at some point in time you say, well, I really want X online, we're open and we'll constantly be building it. So if you've got suggestions, that's great, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, we're going to start this morning with an activity that I'll tell you more about after we do it. We're going to start out just with doing the activity. Okay, so to begin with, I want you to take your paper, okay, and hold it vertically, okay? So we can talk about vertical, right? Okay, hold your paper vertically. And then, just because I'd like to save time, we're not going to do the next step completely. We're not going to measure 3 inches, but we're going to kind of eyeball 3 inches down. And once we've eyeballed the 3 inches down, what we're going to do, hold on here. Only have 2 hands, darn it. Okay, you're going to pretend like if you had your line right here, you're going to fold it up to about what you would consider. And you can say centimeters, you can say 6 centimeters, whatever you want to say, centimeters, inches. But anyway, you're going to fold it like that. Does that make sense? Okay? Like I have up there. So it's going to look like that. Okay, and right now I would say, use your fingernail if you've got one or whatever. Make it as sharp as you can. I had a problem with my kids. They wanted to make it so sharp they put it in their mouth with their teeth. So, and so you had this really soggy thing happening. So, you might remember to tell them, don't do it with your teeth. Okay, so we went from 1 layer on this vertical piece of paper to 2 layers, right? Okay, now I'm going to ask you to take that and fold it up again so it meets again. And so you're going to have how many layers now? What are the kids going to say? Some are going to say 4, some are going to say 3 because you folded it twice, right? So again, there's some math going on there. What we did is we doubled and then we doubled again, right? So we got exponential growth going on here. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Okay, so now we have 4 layers. Now, can you imagine what we're going to do next? Fold it up again. Okay, so let's do that again. Now it's getting a little bit harder to do. Fold it up again. Okay, now how many layers do I have? How many people think it's 6? Okay, you guys aren't going to admit it anyway. Okay. I know that. Okay, so we went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. If we fold it again, how many would we get? 16. We're not going to fold it again, okay? But if we did, it would be 16 and then 32, and then we're going to start having a real problem. You can't fold it more than 9 times. And if you don't believe me, not with this one, but with another piece of paper later, try it. Cannot fold it more than 9 times. But you could ask your students. I had my students, I said, okay, how many times can you double the paper? And they just knew you could double it more than 9 times. So what did they do? Can I get a bigger piece of paper? So I let them get the biggest piece of paper they could find, okay? Because they knew they could do it. Can they do it? Yeah, it won't work more than 9 times. It gets like a telephone book, okay? So it's kind of a cool way just to get kids thinking about geometric progression, to think about questions and problems and solving and whys and a lot of stuff. But anyway, with that in mind, you've got this. Now, I like to combine science, math, art, social, anything I can put together, because anytime you put things together, you can say, I already did my math and my science, right? Instead of, I got more to do, you put it all together and it seems to gel and make more sense. So what we've got now, we've got a little bit of math going on. We did measuring, we did folding. Now I want you to take the side, the smooth side that doesn't have the fold on it, and I want you to draw something on that side. It can be, I've had the kids draw things like, draw the weather today. Draw something you learned in science. Make bubble letters. Today, you know, whatever you want to do, but something artsy that takes about 2 minutes, okay? 2-minute art, okay, on this side, okay? Okay, now, you at least have some markings. You can always finish it later if you dare. But at this point in time, you've got your artwork. I got Houston skyline here, nothing but clouds and a little bit of sunshine, okay? So we've got our artwork. Now, what you're going to do with this is you're going to make it into a cylinder. Do y'all teach cylinders in some of the grades? Like, I think it's 4th grade for sure, but you teach the shape, cylinder shape. So what we're going to do is you want to curve it. So I found the best way to curve the paper is like rubbing it on the side of the desk. If you rub it like that, you see how it curves?
You want the picture on the outside?
You want the heavy part, picture on the outside, yes, the heavy part to the inside. Okay? Once you do that, you're going to slide, carefully slide, one side into another. Just like it is up there. You're going to tape the seam. Now, a couple things, once you have it curved, then you want to slide one side into the other just a little bit, okay, to make a cylinder. And then I always recommend to the students as little tape as possible. And you all know why I'm saying that, right? It'll look like a mummy if I don't say that, okay? So a little tape, and I'll tell them, well, it's not going to work really well if you don't put just a little tape. So we put a little tape on there to hold it together. I always tape it like right along this edge here. Let me see. Can I borrow the tape real quick? Here. Oh, thank you. Okay. Now I have this, okay? Now, it's like talking about discovery. It's not like I want to immediately say what I'm doing with this, but you might guess what I'm doing. Some people will know because they've seen it before, like Lorena. I know she knows what I'm doing. Anyway, I've asked students at this point, well, what is this? Well, it's a cylinder, okay. Well, what else is it? Well, I remember I had one little boy tell me it looks like a bracelet to me, so he put it on his wrist. That was pretty cool. But I said, also, it's something else. It's a cylinder that flies, okay? A cylinder that flies. So how would you make it fly? It's also a crown. I see this guy wearing his crown. All right, it can be a lot of things. Okay. With that in mind, now, the first time I usually don't do well, but I'm going to try it here, okay? So I'm going to take it. Oh, it does better than that. Hold on. You can do it. There you go. All right. Okay. So what I have is a cylinder that flies. Now, the next thing I do, hold on. Next thing I do is I don't tell the students exactly how to fly it. I don't, I showed them one time, but there's questions like, well, do I throw it the heavy end or the light end? Well, as an adult, you probably know which end to throw, but I don't tell them, okay? So then I let them just experiment for a few minutes with trying to fly it. Before they experiment, I always say this. If you hit somebody, say you're sorry. Try not to hit people, but you're going to hit people. So, don't get all freaked out if you get hit in the head with a cylinder. They don't hurt, really. Okay, so that's what I want you to do now. We're going to have a little mass pandemonium here, and I want you all just to get up and see if you can fly yours. And I'm not going to tell you what the best way to throw it or anything. I just want you to try. Experimental design. Woo!
You sure you don't want to tell?
There we go. There you go. Woo! Oh, that was woo! Oh, yay! Okay. Okay. That was your experimental design. Ouch! Okay. Got me in the foot. Okay. Have a seat real quick. I'm going to tell you a few things. Oh, not a problem. It was great. It was a good shot. Okay. Okay. In this brief time, I think in this brief time, some people have discovered a few things. I want someone who's discovered something about what they think makes it fly better to once we get everybody sitting down here. Somebody who thinks they know some of the secrets to how to make it fly better. Anybody raise their hand? I saw some really fast ones going. Is there anything that makes it better? Over here. Heavy into the front. Heavy into the front. That makes sense? Yes. Okay, how many of you got the heavy into the front in the very first? Okay. How many of you were throwing it the other way? You don't have to admit it. Okay, it's okay. Then, another thing. Nothing against women or girls, but many girls don't know how to throw anything, okay? They throw like this, okay? You want to hold it like a football from the back and throw it like this, soaring. And I call it a soaring cylinder, okay? So when you throw it like this, you're going to get it to really go a lot further. So we're going to practice for just a couple minutes again. I want you to try it that way. Now, before we do, think about something. Could you do this? I don't want you to tell me yet, but I want you to think about all the things you might be able to teach just using this, okay? So get up and go ahead and try throwing it the most advantageous way now. To begin with, when you think about what you just did, I want you to think of it in the context of physical science, okay? How many of you had physics in high school or college? How many of you never had any physics in your whole life until you started reading books and learning about it? How many of you just love to teach physics? How many of you just really don't know if they want to teach physics or not, okay? Physics sounds scary. And so I got into it a little bit deeper to figure out what do we really need to teach. Looked at the HAPG and looked at the BAM and looked at the books and looked at what are the most important things we need to teach in physics in elementary school. And basically, physical science in elementary school, according to the National Science Education Standards, and I keep saying NSES, National Science Education Standards, and thinking that you all know what that is. Does everybody know what the National Education Science Standards are? Let me tell you, just briefly, they came out, I think in 1989, I want to say, and they basically said, here's what professional development should look like. Here's what the content looks like. Here's what inquiry looks like. And basically, they worked for years and years. Scientists, teachers, academicians, all kinds of people worked together to come up with what do we think kids need to know in science. And with that in mind, they wrote the book, The National Science Standards. And it went through draft after draft. And I've been around in this part of the teaching for 15 years, and I saw they had the red copy that came out on Valentine's Day. They had the yellow copy that came out some other day. They had just copies and copies, and they kept on, getting feedback. I went to one session where they had actuaries from insurance companies. They had the lady from the Pepsi-Cola company. They had a lady from Campbell's Tomato Soup out of Paris, Texas. Can you believe that? All of them looking at what do I need in an employee? What do people need to know? And so it was really a cool experience getting to see them thinking about what do kids need to know. And some of the things these people were telling us were scary. The kids, things that adults or 18-year-olds came out of school still not knowing. So that's kind of how the National Science Standards began. Is anyone in here a member of the National Science Teachers Association? I recommend it highly. It's a bit expensive, but lots of times you can get it through your library because you get a magazine every month, so it can be a subscription, and then you can get the magazine out of the library. It has lots of cool activities. It lets you know a lot about what's really going on in science in the nation and even in the world at times. So the National Science Teachers Association, and also because you are the leaders in your school, what the National Science Standards say is basically, this is what you need to teach in physical science. And I can't believe I came back to where I started. I feel so good about that. Okay. With the physical science, starting with matter and properties of matter, properties of objects and materials. So I would ask you to look. I lost my flyer, but if you look at your flyer, does it have properties? Okay. What's a property of the paper that you have in your hand?
Color.
Say that. Color. Okay. Shape. Texture, size, these are all properties. So you can look at that, and you could start out with the kids with, tell me the properties of this piece of paper. I mean, is that easy? Okay. Now, when you folded it up, it still has basic same properties, but did it change its shape? So we have physical changes, right? So I see properties of objects and materials, properties and changes in properties of matter. So we did all that just with those first two things, right? With taking it, picking it up, holding it, looking at it, folding it. Then it says energy. Well, I could put it on fire, right? But I can't do that right now, so I won't do that. But we could make light and heat right here with the same piece of paper. Transfer of energy. Did you see any transfer of energy happening? How do we see it? Okay, you were transferring your energy from yourself, putting that through and seeing that fly. So there's a transfer of energy right there. What about position and motion of objects? Did it change its position? I hope so. Okay. For most of it, it should really coolly change the position. Did you notice that when it was changing its position that it usually had a certain kind of path it took? If you throw it for a while, you see a pattern. Okay? Normally, okay, everything in science isn't, concrete, but normally when you throw it, you see a pattern of it going. If you throw it with your right hand, it will curve to the left, and if you throw it with your left hand, it curves to the right. Okay? That's a normal pattern you see for most people, depending on how you throw and how you hold it, but for the most part. So position and motion. So we've done that with physical science already, and motion and forces, which is what they call it in 5th and 8th grade. So I've addressed to some degree, except for putting it on fire, everything in the physical science standards. Now that doesn't mean I'm finished, does it? Doesn't mean that, okay, I did physical science, I'm done. But it gives you an idea of what they're looking for. Now, I wanted to just briefly mention too, how could you use this activity as a lesson? You could talk about, kids don't understand that there really is air there. I mean, it's like there's nothing there, right? So you could talk about something's holding it up, and then something's bringing it down. So talking about air, talking about gravity, flight. Also, a really cool thing to do, which doesn't happen enough in elementary schools, is measurement. How many of your kids are just fabulous at measuring things? How many of you have a little trouble? Let me tell you why, in my opinion. My opinion is that the reason kids can't measure is because they don't measure. Because it's like, okay, so when I was teaching math, I remember 2 pages in the book on measuring, how long's your pencil, how big is your desk? Hello, we're through. Okay, that's not enough. So you got to keep letting them measure things. So again, this is cool because when they throw it, you can talk about how far did it go. Kids are competitive. Okay, you don't have to have winners and losers, although kids like that sometimes, but it's not recommended, although I feel a bit different about that. But anyway. When you throw it, you can talk about the distance, and they can measure the distance. And you know what? All of a sudden, they care about measuring. Why do they care about measuring? Something they're doing, right? Okay, this is my flyer, and this is how far it went. So you've got measurement going on. You have to talk about a lot of variables. They're collecting data, right? You can do a design challenge, which is the next step. What they could go, I could make a better one. Well, how could you make a better one? What could you do? Can anybody come up with an idea of how they might make it different? Okay, changing the fold, that's one way. How about different paper? How about longer? Shorter? How about putting a tail on it? Add weight. Okay, good. And you like paper clips to the front? There's so many opportunities for kids. If you just say it has to be a cylinder, so that's what's held in constant. But other than that, creativity is yours. Maybe they make out of aluminum foil. I've seen it made out of a soda can. So there's a lot of stuff you can do to extend this. Now, the next thing is like, well, I don't have time to do that. If you don't take time to do this kind of thing, science is never going to mean anything to the kids. It's not going to connect. You do something like this, they're going to remember it forever, okay? And they're going to, and not just, they're going to remember, number one, science was fun. And I think in elementary school, that's the most important thing. I think more than anything else, if you keep the attitude up, if they keep the curiosity up, if they go and you can't, be fired up every minute of every day. But I know when I was teaching, my kids would go, what are we going to do today? And it's like, I was just as excited as they were because we were doing something fun all the time. There's going to be the moment when you got to write it down and the reporter's all mad because you've got to write or whatever. But for the most part, they were having a good time. One of the things I did do that made it work in a lot of other ways is we did the science throughout the week. And on Friday, I had everyone write, what did you learn in science this week? Now, that's a fabulous assessment. And you're thinking, well, that kid's not going to write anything. I remember I had a kid named Chris. He didn't like to write anything. But when we did worms in class, he stayed in through recess to write about worms. I mean, it was one of those light bulb moments because all of a sudden they had something to write about that they cared about. So again, how many of your kids just love to write about the crummy things you have to write about? Boring, boring, boring. When they can write about science, makes a whole new world. So those are things to think about for assessment. Another thing, following instructions. Having, just like I led you through it, kids have trouble following instructions, right? Sometimes teachers do too, but that's beside the point. So y'all were good. You were real good. So I appreciate that. But anyway, I'm telling you, there's a ton of stuff you can do with something as simplistic as a piece of paper, okay? I always say science is asking questions and looking for answers. And I know you're going, I heard that Monday and I heard that Tuesday. You're going to hear it over and over because that's the most important part, that it's discovery. That's, one time I remember what we did is we went and we collected all the bird nests we could find in the whole school, and then they brought them from everywhere. And we came in and we looked at all those bird nests. The kids were enthralled by the bird nests. And I mean, if you've ever looked at one, the way they're woven together, the stuff they put in them, that was discovery. I later found out that you're not supposed to collect bird nests. But we collected bird nests, and those kids were so enthralled by the bird nest, and especially if they brought one from home, then I had them make bird nest. What a hoot. The bird didn't even have any hands, and they made nests. The kids have 2 hands, 4 hands, 6 hands, 8 hands. They couldn't make a bird nest. Okay? Couldn't make anything that will hold together, anything unless maybe they like to use Scotch tape, which I wouldn't let them use Scotch tape. So it's that curiosity, it's that discovery, it's that, all around you. And that's what I want you to keep in mind when you're teaching.